Period 5 is all about the Civil War. It starts actually a few years before Period 4 ended in order to fit the Mexican-American War into this unit. And that makes sense because the issue at the heart of the Mexican-American War is the same issue at the heart of the Civil War. Now, right in the middle of the period, you have the Civil War. It started in 1861 and ended in 1865. And the end year of this period is 1877. That's the end of the project of Reconstruction, of bringing the South back into the Union after the Civil War. Overall, Period 5 is supposed to be about 13% of the total curriculum, which makes this time period more important than all the ones that we've studied so far. And also, it's within that range from Period 3 to Period 8, so it's fair game for the DBQ. Before we get started in this unit, it's worth repeating that the AP US History exam is just not interested in wars. You may be really into the Civil War. Maybe you dress up as a Civil War reenactor. Maybe you have a favorite general. Good for you. That's not going to help you on this test. The AP exam is much more interested in social and political history than in military history and generals and battle plans. So don't waste your time worrying about the details of military history. Don't really focus on battles. Let's start with the first of the 3 key concepts from this time period. Here's what it says in the official curriculum. The United States became more connected with the world, pursued an expansionist foreign policy in the Western Hemisphere, and emerged as the destination for many migrants from other countries. Of course, they packed a few ideas into this, so let's take them one by one. First, it says that the United States became more connected with the world. There's 2 ways this happened. The first is that Americans continued to push westward to the Pacific Ocean. Look at this map of the United States at the beginning of the period. This is a map of the election of 1844. Now look at it at the end. This is a map of the election of 1876. Do you see the difference? It's a pretty dramatic expansion westward. By the end of this period, the US had added a number of territories and new states, including Florida, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, Texas, Oregon, Nevada, and California. In other words, by the end of this period, the mainland boundaries of the US had been established, and the United States was well on its way to becoming the country that we know today. The push to the Pacific Ocean was driven by a number of factors, but the 2 I want you to keep in mind are the California Gold Rush and religious persecution. Let's start with the California Gold Rush. In the 1840s and 50s, there was a rumor going around that there was a lot of gold to be had in California. So 300,000 people flooded into California all at once. A lot of this happened in 1849, and that's where we get the expression 49ers, even the San Francisco 49ers from. The second motive was religious persecution. After Joseph Smith was killed in 1844, Mormons fled persecution by heading westward. They eventually ended up in the Utah Territory, where they remain highly influential to this day. In addition to these factors, Americans really believed that they were special, that they were destined to fill up the entire continent of North America. This idea, this ideology, was known as manifest destiny, and it was a really compelling motive for American expansion all the way to the Pacific Ocean. The text of the key concept says the United States became more connected with the world, and this pull to the Pacific Ocean inevitably opened up the United States to the Pacific world and eventually Asia. Increasingly during this period, American trading networks expanded into Asia, which led to diplomatic, economic, and cultural initiatives to create more ties with Asian countries. One section of the key concept says that America pursued an expansionist foreign policy in the Western Hemisphere. Now, what this means is that the US started expanding, that's where we get the word expansionist, into the Western Hemisphere, and the Western Hemisphere is North and South America. Some of this came from the Monroe Doctrine, an idea from the 1820s that said that the United States should take a role in Western affairs more than Spain or European powers. Finally, this key concept says that the US emerged as the destination for many migrants from other countries. And what this is referring to is the first major wave of immigration to the US, which took place right in the heart of this time period. After the Irish potato famine in 1845, Irish immigrants came to the US in large numbers. Many Irish immigrants were Catholics, and their presence threatened the supremacy of Protestantism in America. You can think of this is the end of the time period of the Second Great Awakening, so a new Catholic presence changes the dynamic. Now, at the same time, Germans began to immigrate in large numbers and settle into ethnic neighborhoods where they preserved their culture and language. In fact, by the end of the 19th century, there were more than 1,000 German language newspapers active in the United States. In response to this new Catholic presence that came both from Irish and German immigrants, a nativist backlash ensued. Nativist means defending the native populations of America. So this party was formed called the Know Nothing Party, and they just thrived on anti-immigrant rhetoric and appeals to anti-Catholic sentiment. Their goal was to limit the power and influence of these groups and to cut off immigration. At the same time, the American government's relationship with other groups, notably Native Americans in the West, Mexican Americans in the South, and Chinese Americans on the West Coast, continued to be marked by conflict and exclusion. Nothing was easy about these changes of the American population during this time period.